The rain was pounding so hard on my windshield, I had to squint just to see my own house. But I knew something was wrong before I even parked, because my husband's silver Lexus was sitting crooked in the driveway, way too close to a dark sedan I had never seen before. My hands were shaking as I shut off the engine, still gripping the thick legal envelope I'd picked up an hour earlier, the one that was supposed to change my life forever. And just as I reached for the door handle, I heard laughter coming from inside. Not just any laughter. It was my sister's voice, low and mocking. And then I heard her say my name like a joke, and my stomach dropped because I realized I wasn't about to walk into my home, I was about to walk into a setup. I stood on the porch with rain soaking through my jacket, the smell of wet concrete and old leaves filling my nose, listening to the muffled voices inside my house, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. My name is Sarah. I'd been married to Mark for 6 years, or at least I thought I knew the man I married. Lately, he'd been distant in a quiet, cutting way, always sighing when bills came up, always reminding me that my job barely covered groceries. He never yelled, which somehow made it worse. He'd just smile and say things like, "We need to be realistic about what you bring to the table." His parents backed him up every holiday with sideways comments and tight smiles, like I was a temporary inconvenience in his life. An hour earlier, I'd been sitting in a cramped lawyer's office that smelt like old paper and burnt coffee, staring at documents I could barely process. My grandmother, the quiet woman who lived alone and reused tea bags, had secretly owned a large stake in a tech company from decades ago. She left everything to me. No drama, no conditions, just trust and assets that made my hands go numb. All I could think about was finally breathing, paying off the house, fixing the constant tension in my marriage. I even practiced how I'd tell Mark. But standing there in the rain, I heard his voice through the door, calm and flat, saying, "She won't question it. She never does." Then my sister laughed, that sharp little laugh I knew from childhood, and asked if he was sure the paperwork would work. Mark said it wasn't paperwork, it was routine forms, things married couples sign all the time. He said, once it's done, everything's cleaner. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped tape around my ribs. I realized he was talking about documents I'd seen mixed in with our mail all week, forms I hadn't looked at closely because I trusted him. My sister said something about timing and money and finally not having to pretend, and that's when it hit me. They weren't angry. They weren't emotional. They were organized. This wasn't a mistake or a secret affair that got out of hand. It was a plan. I looked down at the envelope in my hand, the one they didn't know existed, and I understood something that made my knees feel weak. The people inside weren't waiting to build a life with me. They were waiting for me to sign it away. I didn't knock. I didn't go inside. I walked back to my car, my shoes splashing through puddles, and I sat there watching the warm yellow lights in my house, realizing the life I thought I was protecting had already turned against me. I didn't go home that night. I checked into a roadside motel that smelled like bleach and old smoke. The mattress dipped in the middle, and the heater rattled like it might fall apart. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every word I'd heard, every moment I'd brushed off as stress or money problems. By morning, I wasn't crying anymore. I felt hollow and focused. I called a lawyer I trusted and told her everything. She told me not to confront anyone, not to sign anything, and most importantly, not to let them know I knew. When I walked back into the house later that afternoon, Mark was on the couch scrolling his phone. He barely looked up, just smiled and said, "There you are," like I'd only stepped out for coffee. He handed me a stack of papers and a pen and said, "These came from insurance, boring stuff. We just need them done." I noticed his hand hovering instead of letting go, his jaw tight, even while he smiled. I told him I'd sign later, after dinner. He hesitated for half a second, then nodded. That night, he booked a reservation at an expensive restaurant he normally complained about paying for. He held my hand across the table, talked about fresh starts and teamwork, his voice smooth, rehearsed. Halfway through dinner, my sister walked in, pretending to be surprised to see us, wearing a dress I recognized from our shared credit card statement. She joined us without asking, sat a little too close to him. They talked over me, little jokes that didn't include me, looks that lingered a second too long. Then Mark casually said, "Your sister's going to stay with us for a bit. She needs support." I looked at her face, waiting for embarrassment or hesitation, but she just smiled, slow and confident, and placed her hand on his knee under the table. I didn't flinch, but something inside me went very still, because I realized this wasn't new. This wasn't impulsive. They'd practiced this version of reality. They were already living in it. I wasn't their partner or sister anymore. I was the obstacle they were managing until the timing was right. I finished my water and reached into my bag, pulling out a single folded document. I set it on the table between us. Mark grinned and said, "Finally signing them." I shook my head and told him no. It was a notice from my attorney. His smile dropped instantly. My sister leaned forward to read it, and I slid it back toward myself. I told them I knew about the forms, about the plan, about the way they'd been waiting for me to trust them one last time. Mark started talking fast, saying I misunderstood, saying it was normal, saying I was overreacting, the way he always did when he got caught. I told him my grandmother left me everything in my name alone, and that I'd already taken steps to protect it. Nothing dramatic, just smart and legal. The house, the accounts, everything was being reviewed. His face went pale. My sister's eyes darted around the room like she was looking for an exit. Mark reached for my hand and I pulled away. I told them I wasn't here to argue or explain. I was done. People at nearby tables were watching now, not closely, but enough, and that made them uncomfortable. My sister started crying, loud and messy, but it didn't land the way it used to. It just felt empty. I stood up, paid the bill myself, and told them they could have each other, because that was clearly what they wanted, but they weren't getting me anymore. I walked out into the night air feeling lighter with every step, not because I'd won, but because I finally saw the truth. The lesson was simple and it stuck. Some people don't love you. They love what they can take from you, and the moment you stop being useful, the mask slips. Losing them wasn't my punishment, it was my freedom. If this story hit home for you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more real stories about betrayal, justice, and taking your life back.